Good day, everybody. Today we are going to learn our final chapter in international business, which is human resource management in the global firm. Okay, so we have learned a lot during our first chapters about the differences of cultures, a way of doing things. Those are the things that we need to really take into account when we want to do international business. Okay, so in this final chapter, we are going to learn what are actually the issues that we have to um, face and how we are going to resolve these issues regarding um, human resource when we are going and put our business internationally. Okay, so these are our learning objectives for today. Okay, we will understand the strategic role of human resources in international business, and then this chapter will also explain international staffing policy, how we are going to staff our workers or and our talents. And we are going also to learn the process of establishing training needs and programs so that our employees can perform well in international environments. And then we are going to discuss how are we going to do performance appraisals and what kind of compensation that we can give for our international employees. Okay, and then another thing that is very important also is the international labor relations. Okay, because if we don't understand what this is, this can bring a lot of problem to our organization. Okay, and we are also going to look into the diversity in the international workforce. Okay, so what are the challenges of international human resource management? Okay, so basically if we see huge companies, huge MNEs like Siemens, for example, they employ more than 330,000 people in around 200 countries around the world. That is like all most of the countries in the world, Siemens have employees. Okay, and this include 190,000 people throughout Europe, 100,000 in North and South America, 70,000 in the Asia Pacific region, 10,000 in Africa, Middle East, and also Russia. So just imagine the huge challenges that companies like Siemens will have to face, okay, when they need to manage, okay, employees from different regions, different countries, uh, having different backgrounds, different cultures, way of doing things, and so forth. And also, the countries have different laws, okay, that they need to they enforce. Okay, and companies like Hutchinson, Whampoa, IBM, Nestle, Panasonic, McDonald's, Tata Consultancy Services, Unilever, Volkswagen, and many others, they have, each of them have more than 100,000 employees working outside their home countries. Okay, so um, what is actually international HRM? Okay, international HRM includes the planning, selection, training, employment, and also evaluation of employees for international operations. So how they recruit, how they train, how they put the personnel at which kind of job scope, okay, around the world. Uh, that if they are able to do that very well, it can give them a competitive advantage. Okay, because if they manage their staff very well, international staff very well, it will be a plus point for them to hire, to get very talented people from around the world. Okay, now There are three employee categories in M&E, in multinational enterprise. Number one is what they call as the PCNs, okay, the parent country nationals. Okay, so they are the citizens of the country where the M&E is headquartered. Okay, so for example, if the company is a Malaysian company, okay, and they hire me, okay, a Malaysian, so I am a PCN. Okay, and then host country national, okay, HCN. Okay, so HCN is the citizens of the country where the subsidiary or affiliate is located. Okay, HCNs make up largest proportion of employees that the firm hires abroad. Okay, for example, when earlier, okay, in my career um, uh, path, okay, I worked in a Japanese company, Japanese multinational. Okay, so the HQ, the headquarter is in Japan. Okay, but they have a subsidiary around the world, including Malaysia. Okay, and I work in that subsidiary company. Okay, so I am a HCN. Okay, all right. Then there's third country nationals, TCN. TCN are the employees who are citizens of countries other than the home or the host country. Most work in management. They have unique skills. Okay, so for example, in the company that the Japanese company, Japanese subsidiary company that I worked for in Malaysia before. Okay, there were also foreign nationals. Okay, foreign nationals like from India. Okay, and they work as a skilled engineers. Okay, so but they are not management. Okay, but they are very skilled engineers. So that's why the company um, and they are from India. Okay, not Malaysian Indians. They are from India. Okay, so they were being hired and come to Malaysia and work in that Japanese multinational, the subsidiary in Malaysia. Okay, so remember there's a PCN, HCN, and also TCN. Okay, so what makes actually international HRM very complex? Okay, these are actually the factors. Okay, number one, international HRM demands new HR responsibilities. Okay, because it is not they are not working with people that they already understood the background. I mean the lifestyle, the way of life, the culture. Okay, but they are very different. And when they come to the country and work here, and they are foreigners, like the uh, PCN, no problem. Okay, HCN also no problem. Okay, but TCN would be some problem because they would require visa. Okay, so it's a new responsibility in terms of they have to follow the law. Okay, and many others. Okay, and then the need for broader perspective. Okay, because these people they come from different backgrounds. Greater involvement in employees' personal lives. Yes, because sometimes these people they come, okay, especially the TCN, they come, and they don't come even if they don't come with the family. Okay, you need to make sure where they live, what kind of housing that you are going to give them, what kind of facility. You have to make sure that they follow the rules or the law of the country. um, so you need to always check on them. Okay, so when they come with the family, so how about the visa for the family, for example, the health insurance, and so on. Okay, so there will be greater involvement in employees' personal life. Managing the mix of expatriates and the locals. Okay, so you don't want the expatriates to become isolated from the locals. Okay, you need them to mix because they need to work together. Okay, so this is HR, the responsibility of HR. greater risk exposure, okay, and also external influences of government and culture. Okay, let's see. I think there are going to be um, the explanations more here. Okay, so new HR responsibilities such as international taxation, okay, international relocation, the services for expatriates, visa for example, host government relations, the language translation services. These are actually language translation services. For example, when I was working in that Japanese company, um, because I graduated from Japanese university, so I can speak Japanese very well. So the HR will always need to find people who can speak Japanese to work in that company, just because to accommodate the Japanese, the expatriates, okay, because they cannot speak English very well. So we will have to be those who can speak Japanese. They will have to be the person in the middle. Okay, so like if my boss, a Japanese boss, they are very angry to a local staff who cannot speak Japanese. So he will express his anger to me first, and then I have to translate that frustration and convey to the local staff. Okay, so it's quite funny sometimes, but sometimes it's also quite depressing also. Okay, because you are not actually the one who is being uh, you know uh, the real person that he is really angry at, but somehow it becomes a frustration, also something that is quite stressful also for you, because because you are the first person who received that negative vibes. Okay, anyway. Need for broader international perspective, such as establishing fair comparable compensation when there's a mix of PCNs, HCN, and also TCN. So, it, the will the expatriate get more, okay, than the local person, even though their talent is actually quite the same. So, these are something that needs to be really, um, you know, being faced, okay, by the HR people. Number three, greater involvement in employees' personal life, such as regarding housing arrangements, healthcare, children's education, safety, security, appropriate compensation, and also higher living costs. Okay, so this is you will have to be quite meticulous also, because their safety can become an issue between governments. Okay, which means that if you don't really take care of the expatriate, for example, okay, it can and they complain to their embassies, then that can become a friction, okay, an issue between two governments. So be careful. The next factor is managing the mix of expatriates versus locals. Each location may be staffed with a mix of PCNs, HCN, and TCNs, depending on firms' international experience, cost of living abroad, local laws, and availability of qualified staff. So, as an HR, how are you going to make sure that these people work together? Okay, work together very well. Okay. And then next one, greater risk exposure. Exposure to political risk and terrorism may require increased compensation and security arrangements. So like Malaysia, we are quite safe, okay? But let's say you need to send staff to the Middle East, to some countries that are having, internal wars, for example. So you need to really make sure that they are well secured, okay, and they are well compensated based on the risk exposure. Okay. External influences of government and culture, such as taxes, local work regulations, traditional work practices, and cultural conditions. Okay, so for example, in Malaysia, every Friday, we will have a long break, okay, to allow the men the Muslim men to go for prayers, okay, in the mosque. Okay, so but so for the Japanese people, this is like quite a culture shock, because they always they put priority importance on time. So long break is like something so strange for them. Okay, so the HR need to make sure that they these people are given an explanation. Okay, but that one is like you are in the local uh, company. Okay, but if for example let's say in the company in Japan, okay, but they have expatriates, they have foreign nationals working there, and it happened that there are Muslim men working there, so are they going to give some allowance, okay, for them to do the Friday prayer? Okay, so that is something that actually their HR needs to consider also. So these are the key tasks of international HRM: international staffing, preparing training, uh, international performance appraisal, compensation, international labor relations, and also the diversity, how to manage the diversity in the international workforce. Okay. So these are, okay, the tasks versus the strategic goals, and also what are the challenges, okay, that they might face. So for example, for the task of international staffing policy, their strategic goals is they need to choose between home country nationals, host country nationals, and third country nationals. So who are they actually going to pick? Who is the most suitable person to fit into the job, okay, a position? So they need to make they need to choose, okay, and they need to develop the global managers. They need to recruit and select expatriates. Okay, so some challenges when they are in the process of doing this are, for example, country bias. Okay, nepotism. What is the meaning of nepotism? Nepotism is like, you have here, what we say is like you have cable. Okay, you know people. Okay, and people know you. Or somebody who has power tell you that you must hire this person. Okay, so those are some challenges that uh, international HRM people might um, encounter, okay, when they do international staffing. And then next one is how can they cultivate the global mindset between if there are a mix of HCN, PCN, and also TCN. Okay, so how are they going to open the mindset of everyone so that they can work together? Okay, in terms of preparing and training for international employees, okay, the goal for this task is to increase effectiveness of international employees. Okay, of course, to increase company performance. And then they need to train employees with an emphasis on area studies, practical information, and also cross-cultural awareness. Why? Because this is to make sure that those international staff, okay, their culture shock will be minimized. Okay, so if they have this really huge culture shock and they cannot overcome it, okay, this can lead to a failure in that expatriate assignment, okay, to that country. So especially countries that have really cultural practices that is quite strict. Some countries, they do have that. Okay, so it is the responsibility of the HR people, okay, to um, to increase the awareness, okay, and to give some education about what they are going to expect when they go to the country that they are going to be assigned to. Okay, and then international performance appraisal. Okay, so HR need to assess over time how effectively managers and other employees perform their jobs abroad. Some people, they are doing a very excellent job in when they were in the local, okay, the local company or the HQ, for example. But when they are being assigned overseas, uh, they cannot, some people who do not have the EQ, okay, emotional quotient, okay, uh, emotional ability to mix with other people, to manage people from different culture, okay, so it can, affect them in terms of work performance. So uh, this, the HR need to strike the right balance between the standardized and localized employee performance benchmark, okay, because they these people who are being sent over to other places, they are like a totally new employee. They don't know nothing. Sometimes they don't know nothing. They don't know the culture. They don't know how things are being done there, okay. So how do HR is going to assess them in terms of performance? Okay, so that is very important. Striking the right balance is very important. And then the compensation of employees. Okay, so international HRM people, they need to develop guidelines. They need to administer compensation. What are the suitable base salary, the benefits, allowance, and also incentive, so that they need to avoid double taxation of employees. Okay, so if they send an expatriate, how much are they going to get in the host country, the salary? Okay, how much are they going to get their salary in the home country? Okay, because if this is not being done well, okay, that expatriate can be taxed in the home country and also at the host country. Okay, so you need to avoid that. And then the next one is international labor relations. Okay, so this one is manage and interact with labor unions, engage in collective bargaining, handle strikes and other labor disputes, wage rates, and possible workforce reduction. Okay, or even sometimes the worker, they suddenly missing in action. So how are you going to tackle the situation? Okay. Um, so you need to be able to reduce absenteeism, workplace injuries, okay, because of negligence and labor strike. Okay, so uh, how are you going to interact with them? That is very important. And the next one is diversity in the international workforce. Okay, so how are you going to recruit the talent, okay, for your overseas branches? Okay, so you need to bring diverse background, so, from the specific knowledge and experience, so that they can, further contribute to the specific problems and gain more opportunities for business. Okay, and one of the most challenge issue is how are people in HRM going to achieve gender diversity. Okay, so between male and female, okay, are they going to get the same wage for the same position? Okay, how about so because some countries, they don't really accept people, LGBT people. Okay, so how are you going to tackle that? Okay, so basically these are all the key tasks and challenges of international HRM. So, what are the criteria for selecting employees for foreign operations? Okay, staff with parent country national (PCN) when headquarters want to maintain strong control over its foreign operations. Okay, so for example, Japanese people, Japanese company, okay, they establish subsidiary in Malaysia. Okay, so to maintain control, especially in decision making in their foreign operations, they send their Japanese staff, and most of them usually are the management staff, okay, to that foreign subsidiary, okay, to work there. Okay, so these are the criteria of when they select the employees. Okay, it depends on your intention. Okay, and then another reason, another criteria of PCN, okay, being selected is that headquarters want to maintain control over valuable intellectual property that is easily dissipated when shared with HCN or TCNs. Okay, so first, control. Okay, the second one is the valuable intellectual property. Okay, and then the third one, knowledge sharing is desirable among headquarters and the subsidiaries, particularly for developing local managers or the host country organization. Okay, so they send the expatriates from the parent country, okay, so that they can share the knowledge for development of talents. So that's why in my company before, okay, that Japanese subsidiary, okay, so we have the Japanese bosses, we also have local bosses, the Japanese, so the Malaysian bosses. But so from time to time, they will, develop this local manager, educate how to think, the way um, uh, the company should think. Okay, so um, those are some of the things that they have done before. Okay, and that is also why they select Japanese graduates, okay, to work in the company, okay, so that it will be easier for them, for the expatriate, to share knowledge. Okay, and then regarding foreign operations, okay, uh, staff with parent country nationals are being selected when foreign operations emphasize R&D and manufacturing, because PCNs are usually more knowledgeable about those activities. Okay. Now, when is the time when the HCN are being selected as a staff? Okay. Now, one of the criteria is the country is distant in terms of culture or language. Okay, so for example, China. Okay, or when local operations emphasize downstream value activities like marketing and sales, as HCNs know local business best. So it would take a very long time if you send a staff from the parent country to really learn and understand the culture, the network of the subsidiary uh, company, okay, in the foreign country, which is where the culture and the language is totally different. Okay, like China, like Japan, for example. So that's why they will hire people from that country, okay, from the host country. Okay. And then another criteria is that local connections and relations are critical to operational success. Okay. For example, relations with the government in Russia is very, very important when doing business there. Okay. And then local government requires the MNE to employ a minimum proportion of local personnel, or when tough immigration rules prevent the long-term employment of expatriates. Okay. And then the last one is cost, because of the cost. Okay. Uh, if they hire so many people from the parent country, okay, so it would be higher cost for them, okay, compared to if they hire the PCNs, okay, because if they hire staff from the PCN, okay, or TCN, and they have family and they want to bring their family over, so it means that the company will have to pay for more than one person. Okay, so when cost is an important consideration, okay, it is much better to just hire people from the host country. Okay, now let's look at the criteria of the staffing using third country nationals, the TCN. Okay, so this is being done when the top management wants to create a global culture, okay, among firms' operations worldwide. So this company should have a good mix of PCN, HCN, and also TCN. Okay, and then top management seeks unique perspective for managing host country operations. Sometimes people inside, okay, we cannot see what we don't actually see or understand what is actually happening, okay, or we cannot think of something new because we are already inside. But if we hire somebody from outside, they might have a different perspective, a unique perspective in managing the host country operations. They might come with the unique ideas compared to the people who are already inside. Okay. The headquarters want to transfer knowledge and technology from third countries to host country operations. Okay, so this is why staff are being hired from a third country, a third country. The firm cannot afford to pay the expensive compensation typical of PCNs. Okay, so usually the PCN is the more developed. Um, comes from more developed country usually. Okay, so PCN would be the highest if we say in terms of salary. So the second one is the TCN. Okay, so it's much better to hire people from this region to save more cost on salary. Okay, now let's look at how HR dealing with international HRM search for their talent. Okay. Now, staffing includes two things. One is recruitment and another one is selection. So recruitment is meaning searching for and locating potential job candidates to fill the firm's needs. But selection is after you search, after you gather all of them for an interview. Selection is when you have already gathered them, got their information from their CV and also their interviews. Then you need to do evaluation and you need to decide who actually will be given the opportunity to work in the company. Okay. So managers must proactively identify potential candidates and must groom them, okay, to become corporate leaders. Because this is very important, especially in international setting. Okay. So some characteristics that can facilitate international effectiveness for the employees, you will want people who have the knowledge of the job. Okay, they must have, apart from the technical capabilities, they must also have adequate managerial skills. Okay, they must be self-reliant. Okay, they must have entrepreneurial and proactive mindset, because when they become expatriate managers, okay, their function is more about independence, how they are going to make their decision, uh, and because they have limited support from the headquarters, they cannot, every time call or ask headquarters for everything and for every step that they want to do. Okay, they need to be independent. They need to be able to do the good decision by themselves. Okay, so self-reliant is one characteristic that is very important for international HRM if you want to send them to become expatriates. And these people must also be adaptable. Okay, they must have ability to adjust to foreign cultures, cultural empathy. They must be flexible. They must be able to, have diplomacy, and they must have a positive attitude, because they will experience those culture shocks in the first place. Okay, and then how are they going to live that culture shock? Okay, but at the same time do what they need to do with the job. Okay, so they really need to have, how the right mix or the right balance of between being strict with the job and also have that empathy, have that flexibility, can negotiate, and a positive attitude that it can be done, even though there are a lot of, not to say issue, but also barriers of languages, culture, background, and so forth. They must also be they must also have interpersonal relations, okay, and also good teamwork skills. Okay, and it is the key is actually they need to be able to build relationships. Okay, they must have leadership ability as well. Okay, must view change positively, and they must be proactive in managing threats and also opportunities. Um, because living abroad is very stressful. Okay, those people that you're going to send for international operation as expatriate, especially expatriate managers, they must have physical and emotional health. Okay, so they must be, adaptive to the shocks. Okay, and know how to live through it, live with it. Okay, and also of course if they have family, okay, the spouse and the dependents are prepared to live abroad, because you are not going to send them for 1 week or 2 weeks. Okay, usually expatriates, they are being sent uh, as short as 3 months, 3 years or 5 years, okay, or perhaps more. Okay, so I've mentioned before about how these expatriates or just anyone, if you go into a very new setting, especially the cultural setting, okay, you will experience culture shock. Okay, so how are you going to be, either you want to choose, you want to be adaptive, or you want to, you need to be able to navigate around. Okay, this is what we call as cultural intelligence. Okay, um, uh, these differences in cross-cultural experiences, okay, will actually give the those, foreign nationals who are being sent overseas to work, okay, will give them more exposure, actually open their horizon, and also will add up to the knowledge of them to understand different cultural dimensions, different values, different social norms, different religious belief, and even languages. Okay, and they also need to be able to interact with you know these different people, okay, to be interested in them, actually interested in interacting with different kinds of people, and they should be confident in doing so effectively. Okay, this is what we call as the motivation. Okay, and last one is the behavioral flexibility, where these expatriates or just anyone, even if you, okay, going into a new cultural setting, is your ability to adopt the verbal and non-verbal behaviors appropriate in different cultures. So if you are able to navigate yourself, okay, in a new cultural setting in these four elements, using these four elements, you are one whom we call somebody who has cultural intelligence. Okay, let's learn about some terms about expatriate. Since I have mentioned expatriate for many times, okay, what is the meaning of expatriate? Expatriate is an employee who goes to work abroad for an extended period, usually years. Okay. Now, expatriate, there's also a term which is called repatriate, repatriation. So what is the meaning of repatriation? Repatriation means the return of the expatriate to the home country. Okay. So after finishing the contract for 3 years or maybe 5 years, okay, so this expatriate will be sent home, okay, as per contract. So before going home, require um, advanced preparation, okay, uh, especially if they come with a family, okay. So their furniture, they might want to go back, their car, they want to, either they want to sell or they want to bring back. The children, if they went to school, any international school, so how are they going to, um, stop their schooling there, and then what school they are going when they come back to the home country, are they in exam years, so many things, okay. So and when they have already set in their lives in the new country, okay, for 3 years or maybe 5 years, especially if they really love the country very much, when they come back, they might have some reverse culture shock. Okay, so that can also affect their their effectiveness in doing work if it's not being managed very well. Okay, so repatriation needs a lot of work as well. Okay, and then another term here is expatriate assignment failure. So what is this? This is the premature return of an expatriate due to an inability to perform well abroad. Okay, so like for example, the contract written was 3 years, but before that 3 years, that expatriate had need to be sent home. Why? Because maybe he could not adapt to the new life in a new country, or people don't give cooperation to him or her, okay, in doing job, making everything is a lot of mess. So, or maybe there's some problem, maybe he didn't abide the law, so he need to be sent back. So this is what we call as expatriate assignment failure, and this is very costly to the firm, okay, because you will lose the productivity, and then the relocation costs. Okay, you have sent them to a foreign country to get benefit for the company, but uh, you have not got the benefit yet as a company, okay, as a firm, and then you have to send him back, which also requires a lot of money. Okay, so this will give stress to everyone, okay, to the firm, to the workers, to the staff or expatriate, and even their family. Okay, so something that I've mentioned again and again is about culture shock. Okay, so culture shock is very something that a huge issue actually to be handled, because it can lead to mental depression. Okay, because of inability to adjust to a new culture setting, and it does not only affect the expatriate, him or herself, but it can also affect the family members as well. Okay, and culture shock is actually a leading cause of expatriate failure. Okay. Um, these are usually happen to expatriates being sent to a country that is the which culture is very unique. Okay, culturally dissimilar countries such as China or Yemen, okay, and many others. Okay. So how are we going to reduce, okay, as an HR, how are we going to reduce this risk of culture shock? Okay, so what we can do is we can do advanced preparation. Okay, before they go to that foreign country, you need to give them some training. Okay, give some language skills, try to arise their deep interest in the new country, introduce them the country, and give some expectations, what the do's and the don'ts of the countries. Okay, what are the things that is being important, being considered important, okay, by the people of that country. Might be very different, okay, from the home country. And physically, you can encourage them to exercise regularly, maybe in terms of teaching them relaxation techniques or any other techniques then that can help them reduce the anxiety and also the stress coming from the culture shock. Okay. So, okay, now we are going deeper into how we are going to prepare them or train them. Okay, before they go for to become an expatriate. Okay, so the goal of the preparation and also training for international employees is to increase their effectiveness abroad. Okay, increase, yes, and eventually increase the company performance. Okay, that is the main reason. So, okay, what we look into is the desirable employee qualities. Okay, so these people, okay, they must be technically competent. Okay, they must be self-reliant. They must be adaptable. Okay, must have interpersonal skills. Must have leadership ability, physical and emotional health, and their spouse and dependents must be prepared for living abroad. Okay, if you can select people who match this, okay, then we go next. Okay, or even if they are not prepared, you can prepare them for this. Okay, and then we go to the training. So what the training should emphasize. Okay, so the things that must be included in the training is the area studies. Okay, so the host country, the history, the political situation, the economic situation, and also the cultural dimensions of that country. And then some practical information. Okay, skills necessary to work effectively in host country. Okay, like language skills or how to read the gestures. Okay, in some country like Japan, for example, they are not so verbal, but they are very, they are, their body language shows a lot. Okay, so those kind of information, what to do during your first meeting with the client, for example, because these people, they are very, the Japanese people, they are very strict on that. Okay, so those kind of things. And cultural awareness. Okay, so cross-cultural communication, negotiation techniques, reduction of ethnocentric orientation, and of course the language skills. Okay, so how the training should be carried out. You can use videos, lectures, readings, case studies, critical incident analysis, role play, language training, field experience, long-term immersion. Okay, so like you can introduce them to the community, for example, the community that live in the home country, okay, but originates from the host country that this expatriate is going. Okay, so for example, let's say this person is going to be sent to China, for example. So there's a community that of people from PRC, okay, living in Malaysia. So maybe can send them for having a cultural immersion, okay, before they go to these expatriates go to uh, China, okay, themselves, right? Okay, done this. Okay, so for all that complexities in international HRM, okay, so those criteria being judged, okay, these are the list of best global companies to work for. Okay, so good international HRM can list your company up the rank. So when your company is up the rank, um, talents, okay, good talents will want to work with your company. So that is why it is very important actually. Okay, all right, now that you have prepared them, okay, you have prepared your expatriate manager, okay, and you have sent them to the foreign country, okay, to the host country. They have done their work for a certain period of time. Now you will need to give them performance appraisal. Okay, so what is the meaning of performance appraisal? It means a formal process of assessing how effectively employees perform their jobs. And at the end of the day, the output of performance appraisal is usually bonus. Okay, or even the rise in salary. Okay, okay. So actually, performance appraisal during the process should help identify the problem areas where an employee needs to improve and additional training is needed. Okay. Um, and this is usually very challenging in international business. Okay. um, So usually the multinational enterprises, okay, they devise procedures to assess the performance of individual employees, make sure if there's any problem, okay, because of uh, a certain skill level that is still not enough, okay. So when they have identified that, okay, who uh, let's say staff A, they should be achieving this kind of level standard, work standard, for example, and they have, so it's good. And then or if they don't have, not yet, they don't reach that standard, okay, so they need to be trained. Okay, so HR usually will arrange a training for them, but and also if the employee consistently cannot achieve the goals, okay, or the level that they should achieve, then usually the company will terminate them. Okay, so performance appraisal is very, very important for both, for the company and also for the staff. Now, okay, now let's go to the compensation. Okay, compensation, okay, internationally it varies, okay, because of the legally mandated benefits, okay, the different in tax laws, okay, differences in cost of living, local tradition, and also culture. Okay, and those people, okay, employees who are being sent abroad, okay, they expect to be compensated at a level that allows them to maintain their usual standard of living. Okay, so which means that if they come from a developed country, okay, and then they are being sent to developing country, okay, they still want to maintain, okay, their lifestyle. Okay, they don't want their salary to be, lower, for sure. Okay, so HR must be very, this is quite a delicate issue, okay, a very sensitive issue. So it is very important for the HR people to, to really look into this and make sure that they are being compensated um, well, okay, or decently. Okay, so usually for this expatriate, their compensation includes the base salary, okay, and then their benefit, okay, for example, healthcare, okay, insurance, allowance, okay, for example, for housing, for the children's education, for travel, okay, going flight, okay, and also other incentives. So these are the cost of living in different countries. You can see, for example, New York is the highest. Okay, so let's say a person who is in then from India, okay, being sent to New York, okay, he would be very happy. He or she would be very happy. But if the other way around, okay, what do you think will happen? Okay. So of course, what a person from New York being sent to Delhi, okay, would want his lifestyle to be maintained. Okay, his apartment or his house rent must be, paid. His car also maintained. So because those are the things that he cannot, cancel. Okay, salary is a very, very, the remuneration is very, very important to be considered. Now, talking about salary, okay, um, there are some debates about what is a suitable salary for uh, a CEO or executive, okay, the top management in a company. Okay. So in China, for example, the annual compensation of the president of a big bank is typically $300,000. In the UK, the pay may reach 3 million, but in the United States, the compensation may exceed 10 million. Okay. So there are not even ethicists, now even the, some uh, political, it has become political argument actually, that CEO should not earn salaries hundreds of times greater than entry-level employees. You just imagine an entry-level employees gets a salary of $1,000, let's say, okay, but the CEO gets 100,000 or $200,000 per month. Okay, so this is something people, the ethicists say, not ethical. Okay, this can hurt employee morale. Okay, because people are working so hard down there, but they are being compensated very, very low, okay, compared to the CEO who is already, enjoying life. Others argue that pay should be tied to company profitability, and firms cannot attract top talent unless they pay top wages. Okay, so um, some argue, okay, CEO should not earn more than hundreds of times greater than the entry level employees. But other people would argue that if you don't pay very, very good compensation to these CEOs, then they will just go away. Okay, if they are really good leader, top talent, they would go. They would just go anywhere that can pay them higher. Okay, so these are things that is being debated, especially in the US. Okay, because countries like even Japan, for example, they don't really pay very high. I mean, not as much as in the US for the president of the company. Okay, another thing that is very challenging in international HRM is um, facing the labor unions. Okay, and also the collective bargaining. Okay, if everything in the company, I mean, regarding the welfare of the employees is being managed only by one side, which is the management, then it can be, there's a possibility that it's being one-sided, okay, only for the benefit of the company, but not benefit of the workers. So that is why in many companies, there are labor unions. Okay, so the workers form their own union to fight for their rights, especially the basic rights. Okay, so HR will have, this is something that is quite challenging for them to handle, especially if there's frictions between both parties. Okay, so collective bargaining involves negotiations when between management and workers regarding wages and working conditions. So if there's anything, any problem, any issues regarding especially wages and also working conditions, these two parties, the management and also the workers, usually represented by the labor unions, will need to negotiate, and also they will have to bargain. Okay, I can do this, okay, but I cannot do that. Okay, so we can give this, but we cannot, okay, something like that, until they can find a mutual understanding. Okay, labor regulations vary substantially, with minimum regulations in Africa and India to very detailed regulations in Northern Europe. So usually, developed country will have very, very detailed labor regulations. But developing countries such as Africa and India, they are very minimum regulations. Okay, um, so that's why you will always hear, okay, about strikes here and strikes there in the European countries, okay, because they are, very strict in protecting the interests of the workers. Okay. Okay. So, what are the trends in international labor? Okay. Some trends include mobility of labor across national borders. Okay. It has increased very substantially. Reason being the growing interconnectedness of national economies. It is easy now for us to fly here and there, especially when there are cheaper airlines. Okay, uh, and then also the relationship between different, in terms of economy, okay, the trades, more interconnectedness. Okay, rapid expansion of multinational firms, rise of international collaborative ventures, greater emphasis on global teams. Many countries are coping with an influx of immigrants. Okay, so these are some trends. Okay, so we talked about gender equality. Okay, so especially women, actually, when we talk about international business, women occupy relatively very few top management position. Okay, so for example, in Europe, they occupy up to 20% of senior executive posts. Okay, some countries much lower than that. Okay, this is what we call as um, glass ceiling. Okay, so what are the reasons for that? So the reasons commonly given for the scarcity of women in international jobs, one reason is senior managers may assume women are not suitable leaders abroad, okay, because they need to handle men a lot, need to interact uh, with men a lot, especially that country, the gender equality is lacking. Okay, or some female managers just prefer to remain in the home country because of family obligations. Or most companies do not accommodate child rearing or other family responsibilities. or there are fewer women with sufficient experience to be sent abroad for senior jobs. So these are some of the reasons usually given. Okay, but okay, don't worry. Recent positive trends. More women are in the workforce than ever before. More women are obtaining university degrees in business. Okay, female graduates account for some 50% of recruits joining European firms. Okay, so even in Malaysia, um, female students, even in the engineering faculty, are more than the male students. Okay, business women increasingly form their own network, okay, because they realize that it is very hard for them to, work alone. They need to form an ally. Okay. So some alliance like Women Directors on Boards in Britain, Alliance of Business Women International in the United States, they have their own network. So they work together and push uh, themselves higher. Okay. So, but except in strongly Islamic countries, um, not to say strongly actually, but more what do we call less moderate Islamic countries. Okay, apart from them, the overall trend is positive. So don't worry. Okay. So some strategies, success strategies for women in IB. Okay. Uh, in many countries, being a foreign woman can be an advantage. Women stand out more and competent women earn respect. Smart women leverage their gender to their advantage. Okay. One good thing about women is that they have the empathy side. They are more adaptive actually. Okay. And usually they are good in languages. Okay. So these are some of the things that are very important as an expatriate we have just learned before. Okay. So using this can be, an additional point for women to have those success in IB. Okay. So these are the end of our class for today. So overall, what we have learned from this class is that international HRM is actually very complex. Okay, there are some issues about that we need to know. We need actually to be prepared before sending people to a host country. Okay, we need to be strategized. That is the most important, actually, as an HR. Okay, so there are already a lot of success stories about companies. Okay, who have, like Siemens, they have branches in almost all over the world, 200 or more countries they have branches. So they must have already been successful in international HRM. Okay, so I hope you have learned something, okay, from this class. So we are going to have our test, which will include until this chapter, this last chapter. Okay, so thank you very much for listening to this discussion. So I see you again in the near future. Okay, all the best for your test.